It is a true pleasure to have the NBA Hall of Famer Artis Gilmore in our studios on NBA All-Star Weekend back in Chicago. 17 years playing professional basketball, the ABA, the NBA, 1 year overseas as well. A-Train, let me shake your hand. Great to see you.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you.
I was just telling you, my first ever NBA basketball game, I feel like I was about 6 years old. And
Okay.
and I was at Old Chicago Stadium. They played the Atlanta Hawks. The Bulls lost 112-107. And you were on that court. I don't remember that part of it, but you were out there.
Wow. We all have those distinct times where something extraordinary happened, and we remember it. And in your case, that particular score against the Atlanta Hawks.
So let's rewind back. You grow up in a very small town, right? Chipley, Florida, 5,000 people. You were a 6'5", 145-pound freshman trying to find your way, and growing up to be 7'2". I mean, what memories stick out from, your formative years, if you will?
Well, the times itself. We celebrate this month, Black History Month, February, but I remember the crisis that we all experienced when we were kids, and the like of things. And I said like of things. My mother and father really didn't have an income per se, so we had but what we did have is a house full of kids, boys and girls, and providing for the family was really challenging. So, anyways, Chipley, I was thinking that it was about the size of your studio here back in the day. But anyways, we had a one stoplight and a lot going on. But I was in a developing process, function of mind moving forward, and as I mentioned, some very issues that we experienced with the entire country was a factor during my developing years.
So I know that you kept growing. You got to a size 13 shoe. You couldn't find it. That you were walking around barefoot. Is that right?
Absolutely. Once I reached the age of 12, I wore a size 12 shoe, and then all of a sudden the number 13 arrived, and then my mother and father had no means, not even the income, the resources to even attempt to look for a size larger. And then when I reached age 14, likewise as well. So for that period of time, I mean, once I was able to find a pair with flip-flops almost to play basketball in, that's when I was involved in the catch-up and really kind of, in a sense, learning the game of basketball.
So, hold on a second. Your dad was a fisherman, right? He was trying to scrape together dollars?
Yes. If he didn't bring home fish, we missed that meal. So
you went hungry as a kid a bunch? Is that accurate?
A lot, yes. Man, I was speaking to somebody some time ago, and I said, what would have happened if we would have had the nutrition, nourishment? No, but we were liking a number of things, and occasionally meals was part of that.
Yeah. What was, I guess, the biggest fear point being African American, growing up in that community, or just, I don't know if it was maybe the fear of like not being safe, or was it just like the schools that were available? Like when you look back at I don't know if you would name like the biggest injustice of the time, what would you say?
Well, separations.
Yeah.
In my hometown, I remember for as long as I can remember, bathrooms, the separates, white and women and men and colored, and the situation, the conditions, the restroom they were in whenever we attempt to use them. I mean, just a host of issues that we experienced.
And did you think, well, this is normal, this is how life is, or were you?
That's way. Well, no, we didn't think of it as normal because there were so many things that was going on, and in that particular environment, it was a number of issues that we experienced.
Do you have any early heroes that you looked up to around that time? I mean, I don't know if you were resonating with MLK or anyone in specific. Obviously your folks, but like any like big figures at the time.
Well, we were aware of the things that Martin Luther King was implementing across the nation, but there was repercussions in other smaller areas because of what was taking place during that particular time in different areas where he was located. But in the smaller areas, there was different kind of a mindset.
Yeah. When did you start to realize that you had? I think football was your first love, right? But then I guess you figured out that basketball might be a good thing for you.
Yeah. What we were talking about, the issues with the wear. I mean, the schools were not able to furnish or provide kids with the proper attire to play sports, and certainly with the large, oversized feet, those things weren't available.
So nobody really knew about you, right? You went to community college, Gardner-Webb, and then you end up and then you sort of get discovered and end up at Jacksonville. Is that accurate?
That's pretty accurate.
Yeah.
That's really pretty much sums it up. But the information highway during those days were like, it was the Pony Express.
Yeah.
There was no media, not very much coverage, whereas athletes was receiving exposure because, for the most part, because of segregation in schools. When I graduated from predominantly all-black school in Alabama, and actually a Floridian, but graduate moving over, which is was about 30 miles away to Dothan, Alabama, from
Right.
Florida. But yes, those experiences was pretty unique.
How'd you learn the baby hook? That thing is sweet.
I like that. I'm glad you compliment. But you look at basketball and you turn around with a jump shot. In front of your opponent, and if me being left-handed, obviously you put that ball right in the position for defensive position very well. But with the hook shot, you get your body between you and your opponent and the ball, and you have the distance. So the most likely that you're going to have a higher percentage of taking that shot without it being contested. So
The only two guys, though, that I can think that can hit that shot consistently in the history of the game were Kareem and you. I mean, whatever, Magic hit a baby hook against the Celtics in the mid-'80s, but that wasn't, and he could hit it, but consistently throw it down there and do it. There's something about that shot that's just not that easy to do, even though, when you watch you do it, it's like, oh, that's easy for him. But, there's a certain level of touch or skill, the whole thing, to actually make it work.
right, that was it ended up being a part of the learning process, absorbing a little bit more understanding of the game and things that will work for you. And that particular phase of offense for me, it was really positive and effective.
But a game changer, I would think.
Yeah.
But you were, huge. You were a leaper, right? You're talking like in the ABA. Were you not in the slam dunk contest?
I actually was. In the very, very first individual to walk on the floor, and I was basically thinking, well, what do I need to do next? And they were actually pointing me to the different locations. Okay, this is where you start, and okay, you can do whatever you want to here. And so I was really truly the pioneer, and a person that was able to finish last was Julius Erving. So that allowed him an observation to see everything that happened, And guess what? He ended up winning it.
So what year is this?
This was 76, 77.
So it was Artis Gilmore versus Dr. J in the
And,
NBA.
and it was David Thompson, George Gervin, and I think Larry Cannon, and who else there were? I think those were the
George McGinnis in there?
No, not George,
Okay.
and the doctor, and so that was that selective group.
So you had the doctor presented you into the Hall of Fame, and so there's obviously a ton of respect there and a huge relationship. How did that start with Dr. J?
Well, actually, during the summer, we would at the end of my senior year, we played sort of all-star games around the country, and one in particular we played in Schenectady, New York. Believe it or not, it was like in May, and they had 18 inches of snow. But anyways, they had all these great collegiate all-stars and Austin Carr, myself. And then there was this other guy nobody knew about, Julius Erving. So we were playing the Schaefer Brewers, I think. And then, this one really quiet guy sitting over in the corner and just kind of doing his little thing, putting his shoes on. All the well-known established players like Austin Carr, they were exchanging conversation and talking about different issues. And then after the game started, then I remember this one particular guy. Man, he goes up over a guy by the name of Hawthorne Wingo. If you ever look that name up, he played in this. It was like the developmental league compared to now, but it was sponsored by a Schaefer Brewer. But anyways, I remember a few years later he ended up returning to the NBA and playing for the Knicks for a little while. But anyways, this guy goes up over his head, man, and changed hands and put his knees on the top of his head and slam dunked the ball. And then I came back and I said, "Who did you say you're playing for?" and then apparently he really wanted to play for the Nets during that time. But apparently also Lou Conesenco, who was the coach for a long, long period of time at St. John's, was the coach of the Nets. And I don't know, whatever, they decided that there was not a fit for him. So he went to Virginia for the Virginia Squires.
Right.
And that's where, it just accelerated and he become Dr. J.
Did he have the afro when he came into the league?
Yes, oh, absolutely, he did. It was Dr. Darnell Hillman and, of course, myself.
Yes.
Yeah.
That was signature back then.
Yeah.
You look back at those pictures. When you look at yourself as a young artist, what do you think?
I said, "Who's that guy?" Well, great memories. Just reflecting the things, the energy that was displayed during that time. It was unique and special.
Playing in the ABA for the Colonels in Kentucky, what was how were the conditions for young black guy playing in Kentucky? Mid-70s, we're further along here, but it's still you're a new league and an interesting time.
Well, not nearly in the environment that it was when things had certainly in 70. When I started in Louisville, that was like almost 72.
Yeah.
And just think 4 years before that, Martin Luther King, 68.
Right.
Martin Luther King was assassinated. So, but Kentucky had made strides and steps, not compared to what it was when I was a kid growing up in my hometown, Chipley. Things have changed and moved forward.
So you guys could stay on the road wherever you wanted, because
yes, but yeah, exactly. But that was not the case in college.
Okay.
Even if we dine in the same location, there was issues about that. There's a great story that was on CBS Sports. I think it was last Sunday, and reference back to that time frame. We're celebrating. When I returned to Jacksonville, we'll celebrate 50 year. We're celebrating our 50th year anniversary of the year that we competed for a national championship and against UCLA ended up losing the title.
I looked at that box score.
Yes.
All-time NBA field goal percentage leaders, 60% from the field. You were 9 of 29 in that game. I don't mean to bring that up, but what happened? That's not the A train that
then was not the A train, but you can never explain what happened except and I fall back on my crutch and says because of the lack of experience, not make an adjustment. Coach Wooten and Denny Crum and the UCLA team had that experience. Jacksonville, we use the term Cinderella. We had a student population right around 2000, and we were able to excel and accomplish something pretty special. And it was pretty
that doesn't
special.
happen in Jacksonville.
But not to avoid that subject, 9 for 29. I mean, what happened is they made the adjustments, and me personally was not able to make things happen and be able to just switch and turn and move to another station. And so what players, athletes, basketball players especially, if they understand some things are taking place, that's the way that they're being defended and things, they understand they can make adjustments now, especially at the professional level. Mm-hmm. But as I said, we talked about all these other issues that I experienced in my earlier years allowed me really kind of a slow process moving forward. And that particular point in life, I was not prepared to make the adjustments that was necessary to be really successful.
Still learning. Kind of, I feel like it's just still slightly bothers you.
Yeah. I said, man, now, if only I had just a little bit more experience, like the experience from now going back then.
Yeah. Who was your toughest guy to go against in the paint?
Well, a number of guys that would be at the top of that list, but during the time, when we were established back in the professional basketball, NBA. I think about Bob Lanier. When Bob Lanier come up, when we played against him, he created different kind of issues and problems, and of course he was left-handed, had a nice little jump shot. Remember way back when Willis Reed was able to shoot a little left-handed and came up limping off the court, against the Philadelphia 76ers. Dave Calvin's created a situation for me. He was a pretty versatile player. And then, of course, I played with Daniel Issel, and then he created problems for me. And then you look at Bill Walton. Bill Walton, when he was healthy, he was a phenomenal player. And then just goes on and on. But then you said if I had to select one player, it probably would be Kareem Abdul-Jabbar because he was a challenge.
So I was watching some old videos. You guys, when you're playing with the Bulls, there's one video you cramming one right on them on the break, and you're playing with Reggie Theus and whatnot. So you certainly had your moments with Kareem, where the A train was winning.
Yes.
What was the toughest part about guarding him? How do you stop the hook? The same thing,
right.
but did you guys ever? You're both gentle giants, right?
Yeah, that's what you call gentle, except when it was time to compete. Yeah.
Right.
But
Kareem would throw fists at people if things went the wrong way.
Yeah, I remember an incident with he and Ken Benson.
Yeah, been walking.
Yeah, that was a tough one for Ken. That was the end of his career, basically. But between myself and most of the centers, and especially Kareem, it was always physical, very physical. And because he was so effective with that other hand hook shot, the one thing that allowed me to have a little bit more success was that I would use a physical, and he catch the ball in rhythm, and he's rolling to the basket, and all in one motion, he's having the kind of success that is needed. But the one thing that what I tried to implement would allow me to have a little bit more success is kind of force him to change his rhythm and not be able to move him a little farther from the floor, which sometimes didn't make much of a difference, but because he had great range moving that hook shot towards the basket.
I mean, you played against the big three Celtics. You played with them at the very end of your career, and you've obviously played against the Lakers. When you try to size up Celtics versus Lakers, and the Lakers won 5, the Celtics won 3, but at their peak, who was the better team? I mean, a lot of people put that '86 Celtics team right up there as the greatest team of all time with Bird and McHale and Parrish, and then of course the Lakers had Magic and Kareem and Worthy. Like, how do you size that one up?
Well, it was always fun as a fan to watch. As of course, as a competitor, I've always had the desire. Man, I would love to be right there in the middle of that, but. I guess it was always watching on the sideline, watching those two franchises compete.
Yeah,
it was fun, but as I said before, as a competitor, you much rather be in the mix.
Yeah. So the teams that you played on in the NBA, the Bulls were coming down off of being a very competitive. That was you got to play with Van Leer and Bob Love, sort of at the end, but that was a team that had been in the Western Conference Finals and then went through a whole transition. And the Spurs you guys were not quite on the Laker level, so you were fighting the good fight, A-Train, basically.
Fighting the good fight, but And I look at the Chicago Bulls and kind of reflect on some of the things that happened earlier. The Bulls was a really fairly new franchise, and new franchise, they have those challenges, experiments of developing growth, and that's what we look at the Chicago Bulls. They just I don't know whether it's 2 or 3 years ago, just celebrated their 50th anniversary of being a franchise, NBA franchise. And so that was a number of, and obviously during the time that I was here, I had to be very much part of those early years. They had accomplished a few things, but I guess it was always it continued to be the working process. And that's what happened with many of the teams. And we reference back to the San Antonio Spurs. We had a difficult time matching up with the Lakers, the Spurs versus. But you had James Worthy, Magic Johnson, and Kareem. And we had George Gervin and myself, and we had some other pieces that were really, really good, but we were not able to get the job finished.
Yeah, you played against the Celtics in the playoffs with the Bulls after you guys beat the Knicks, I think. And then you play the Lakers. You faced them both. You saw it all, and of course, obviously in the regular season, but you saw them all firsthand in the playoffs. That's I imagine the A-Train. Let's sub out Robert Parrish and put Artis on the Celtics. That team looks pretty good too.
Absolutely. When of course it was the end for me. I would just had been released. I played half of the year with Michael Jordan, joined the Celtics, and it was just a phenomenal change. Observing and out of all the years that that competed at that level, and observing that franchise and the mindset and the way they understood. They put the pieces together in order to attempt to make the players and the management and the total overall organization become successful. And that was, man, that was really a pretty amazing to see that, and watching, excuse me, not Magic, but Larry Bird, Robert Parrish, Kevin McHale, Dennis Johnson, and that group of course, Danny Ainge was there for a while before Jim Paxson come in a little bit later. But they had a combination. But parts of the reason, they had basically kind of past their prime, and then it was the Pistons. The Pistons come back and they won 2 back-to-back games, and won that game, and then the Lakers won back-to-back games, and the Pistons took over and won 2 championships, and then it was the guys here in Chicago taking over.
What do you remember of young Michael?
I remember a really a gentleman that really understood the desire, how you convert that skill level, energy, and put it all together and make it work. He was the hardest working young man in practice. And I remember once upon a time, a player used the terminology. He said, "I'm not a practice player." He said, I play in the game. And I remember another quote that came from Wilt Chamberlain before they started the shoot around. I don't know if you ever heard this one or not. Coach, I'm not going to use names because for association, but anyways, they were at this location, and the coach says, "We're going to go shoot around. Get your guys up early and get them moving." He felt that was sort of something that he wanted, desired to insert into their routine. So, anyways, all the guys were on the bus except Wilt Chamberlain, and they said, "Where's Wilt?" I said, "Well, he's not. He's not here." So, would somebody go get Wilt and tell him to come on? And then all of a sudden, this person came back and he had a message. Wilt says, "I'm only going over to that gym for one time. You want me to go there and practice, or you want me to go over and play?" But, I don't know whether that's fictional or real. I ask about this question, and I'm not going to put names in place to associate that particular story, because it's not my intent to offend anyone.
I understand. You mentioned Wilt in your Hall of Fame speech. Do you have a relationship with the Big Dipper and a million other names for one of the greatest of all time?
I did, but I'm going to leave that joke on the side. No, Wilt was great. I look back the first time, because I played in the ABA, there was not many opportunities to play against him. But at the end of my rookie year, I played against him, and it was they had set up the league All-Star game. It was like the ABA against the NBA. And that was the first time they had the NBA had, Oscar Robertson, Wilt Chamberlain. They had a number of stars, and we had, during that time, Rick Barrett, myself, and we had Dr. J. And it was, that particular game was played in Nassau Coliseum. And that was one of the first times I played against Wilt Chamberlain. But it was really good, and he roughed me up a little bit.
Super strong, right?
Super strong.
Yeah.
I think we should double up on this a couple more times. Yeah.
We had those long legs. He could leap, out of the gym. He was, preposterous athlete. Wilt would do okay if he was playing today.
Yes, Wilt played. He played professional volleyball on the beach, and he was a high jumper during the time he was at Kansas, and back in the '50s, and so he was a phenomenal athlete.
You was there maybe an insecurity about Wilt? I know he could never shoot the free throws, and a lot of people would say like you can mention Michael and his mentality of practice. Like if Wilt had a sort of Jordan or Kobe, that level of just I'm going to kill you every day, like maybe he would have had more success against Russell. This seems completely unfair to say, by the way, but when I talk to people who watched it back then, like that's what they'll say about Wilt. Like he was kind of more of a fun-loving guy, but it could have just been that the Celtics had a better team. Like, what's your viewpoint?
No, absolutely. The Celtics had a great team, and Wilt was. I mean, sometimes all the pieces are not there, and I'm not skipping that part of the subject. But when I was during my collegiate year at Jacksonville, my junior year we really excelled, but we had just some pieces that really worked together. The following year, we had better players, but we were not able to have the same type of kind of a success, and that's what happened between Wilt Chamberlain and the Philadelphia. The 76ers having those kind of pieces, and Luke Jackson, Hal Greer, and just a number of former great players, but apparently they didn't match up with Bob Cousy, Sam Jones, Bill Russell, Casey Jones, and that group of individuals.
Do you know Russell well?
I did, still do. I got a photo of him.
What's Bill like off the court?
Right now, Bill and I, we played a little bit of golf together, and I remember him in the earlier years, and he made this remark, man, why don't you swing at the ball and try to hurt the ball? I mean, you're not going to hurt that ball. If you swing at it, swing it and hit the ball.
Building like your golf swing?
Yeah. I didn't like my golf swing either, but
greatest winner, competitor, what would you say about Russell on the court?
Well, listen to Sam Jones is a real dear good friend of mine, and we live pretty much in proximity now. And he lives in St. Augustine. I live in Duval County, which is St. Johns County, which sort of joint together, and we're not that far away. But we many times, many occasions, we would sit down and share some stories about their past and Bill's relationship on the court and the mindset and what he had to do, what he did to prepare himself for each game.
Yeah, that's a different time too.
Yes.
All right, let's wrap up with a couple thoughts on today. Do you enjoy watching the style of play, 3-ball in the air, big man being completely marginalized? You got that look on your face. I don't think you do.
Well, no. I've said, and speaking of the game and what has happened, it's gone through. It changes. It is really continuing to change. And I use in many occasions Bob Cousy sitting down doing, and most of the players two-handed set shot. And in those days versus later on, and you mentioned the 3-ball. The 3-ball was originated in the ABA to open up the game, rather than just that 24-second just pound it down. And so with that international flavor, the game has really expanded and evolved and just turned into something unique. And it's a certain group of people that enjoyed some of the, I won't say older people, I say experienced people. That's the category I'm going to put myself in instead of an old guy.
Right.
But anyways, the mindset, if you are able to just absorb, we were talking about the way the All-Star game set up for this particular uniqueness, the way it is. Almost like a virtual reality where the fans could really sort of be active and part of it, interacting. And that's what the game has evolved with the technology and the way things have changed. So if old stogies like myself, if you can't adjust and just kind of relate to it, you're going to get left behind. It's like those the computers,
You got the iPhone 11 is what you're saying. You're
Not yet, but I came here and I thought you was going to, get me one as a donation. Just donate it.
Well, I mean, I feel like we can make that happen.
Thank you.
But I'm thinking back in the day to a picture that I saw where you're playing. I think you were in Chicago at the time, and you're getting into. Did you have like a convertible where the seat was basically you had to put it all the way back in the back seat so you could get the legs in there, and that's how you would drive around? Which that was probably super hip at the time, right?
Yeah, I think it was SS Super Sport. And believe it or not, what was really weird is that I parked that car at the airport at O'Hara, and we went on a trip. And then when I returned, I was walking through the parking lot, really cold, freezing, and I just looked at I said, I know I left the car. I left it right here, right at this spot. And so when I looked back, and I said, I'm going to circle around, I walked. And then I realized that somebody had taken the car. It was gone.
They stole your car?
They stole the car out of the parking lot.
Now that would never happen today. Today you would have gotten off that plane. That thing would have been warmed up, perfectly waiting for you.
Oh man, how about that? Wow, that would be.
Did you guys? I mean, you obviously flew commercial. How'd you even handle that?
Well, that's another story I was referencing to. Commercial, we flew commercial and first class, and the space on the airlines was so much, unbelievable, so much space. Now, first class on the airline, it is, everything is compressed, compact, and they making certain that the airlines mindset is, well, we're going to transport you to a destination, but it's not our responsibility to make you comfortable. So that level is not there anymore. And and I'm sure the reasoning, it's an economic decision. But I think as technology move forward, they'll be able to, change it, because if you got a smaller aircraft, that you're going to use less fuel. But what happens is, I think they shouldn't forget about us older guys.
I mean, I think we got a business proposition. We're going to start big man airlines. We're going to have some nice small planes. We're going to have some sweet leg room. Guys like you are going to pay a little premium, and you're going to have a nice, comfortable ride. What do you think?
I love that. It's almost like the shoe deal. I said, I think I'm going to go into the shoe business and cater to the big man. And then I realized there wasn't a market.
Not enough of y'all running around.
Yeah. Not that many large feet around.
Let's wrap up with this. What's the number one thing you're looking forward to this weekend in Chicago, the All-Star Game? Obviously, been here a ton of and you got all your guys coming back together that you get to see.
Yeah, I think it's going to be a really, really fun experience, and I think the one thing that's going to be acknowledged is a tribute to Kobe Bryant and his family. And I think that's really wonderful to acknowledge, what a tragedy that happened, what it turned out to be, and that he'll be celebrated this weekend.
What did you appreciate most about Kobe watching him?
Well, again, we talked about Michael Jordan and that aggressive, hard. I mean, it's about making himself better and doing sacrifice or whatever it takes to make this team better and to win. And he just had that, and he patterned himself after the other individuals like Michael Jordan, and I don't want to say that because most people, they said, well, I don't want to be identified as like I did my own thing, I created my own space, but it was similarities, some likeness there, in that situation.
Yeah, I think he embraced that. Everybody's got to learn from somebody. That's the way the world works.
Exactly.
I want to bring up the book here. Here Comes the A Train, the story of a basketball legend. Now, the pictures on the back here, that dude is not,
Wow.
that dude's not playing around. Neither is that dude.
Yeah.
And you're holding the ABA ball here, which I know you talked about at the time. Like you played in the ABA because you liked the color of the basketball.
Right.
Perhaps also that they gave you was a 10-year contract. Kareem Abdul-Jabbar is quoted here as one of the few men tall enough to look me straight in the eyes. Artis stood head and shoulders above most other players. What a wonderful opportunity for more people to get to know the extraordinary career and the life of the A Train. What will people get when they pick this book up?
Thank you. I mean, you can go to the local outlet, Amazon, whatever means of you ordering, and the book is available at those locations.
What are we going to learn when we read it? What are we going to get into here?
Well, talk about a little bit of the story, a little bit of the history. When you doing a book, sometimes you get the book done and you say, oh my God, there is so much more I wanted to talk about. And then you kind of look back and says, well, it's kind of incomplete, but I like the things that we talked about here and some stories.
I just opened it up to a page here. It's the Kentucky Colonels versus the New York Nets, February 3rd, 1974, 14,000 in attendance. The A Train had 40 rebounds.
Yeah. I said they all mine. It's mine. This is my day.
And nobody else was in double figures. A guy by the name of Julius Irving was on the other side that day. He shot 7 of 20. I'm guessing that maybe there was little presence in the paint that was causing some problems.
Yes, absolutely.
Artis Gilmore, great to see you. Hall of Fame career in Chicago for the NBA All-Star Game. True legend in studio with us. We appreciate the conversation.
Thank you so much.